2nd July 2004 was the important day for the Drukpa lineage because His Holiness, the 12th Gyalwang Drukpa, displayed the priceless bone ornaments of Naropa before a gathering of over 130,000 people in Ladakh. The ornaments, promised to grant sight liberation, belonged to the 11th century Saint Naropa, who reincarnated as the founder of the Drukpa lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, Changpa Gyare, the first Gyalwang Drukpa. Many local Himalayan people and His Holiness's foreign devotees began individual preparation at least a few years before this auspicious event. His Holiness authorized Lama Nawang, his representative in Europe, to organize the one-month pilgrimage related to the Naropa ceremony for all his foreign followers between 23rd June and 20th July 2004. Lama Nawang, with the help of Potala cultural tours and travels in New Delhi and Sindhu expeditions in Ladakh, assisted by Joel Huguet, president of Drukpa Plure, had indeed made this pilgrimage a valuable experience for all the participants. Not surprisingly, this pilgrimage in Ladakh was quite difficult for many foreigners. The high-altitude sickness, coupled with inadequate amenities due to an unusually high influx of local and foreign visitors all coming for the Naropa ceremony, resulted in not only physical discomfort but also mental stress. Even the most polite people could act impatiently and impolitely. As His Holiness said in his journal, when one is in a physically comfortable condition, it is always easier to be patient and to practice bodhicitta. It is when one is put through physical difficulties that the practice of bodhicitta, compassion and loving kindness, is really put to the test. Nonetheless, Lama Nawang and his team put in extraordinary efforts to make life in tents for the foreign pilgrims to be as comfortable as possible. With over 700 tents pitched in the compound of Naropa Palace in She, 60 makeshift toilets and 60 makeshift bathrooms were temporarily constructed near to the tents. International phone call facilities, medical quarters and canteen were also set up in the same compound. All these were provided to ensure as little physical discomfort as possible for the foreign pilgrims, who needed all the energy to sustain themselves throughout the entire pilgrimage. From 1978 onwards, His Holiness came to Ladakh every summer, visiting the Drukpa monasteries in different parts of Ladakh and giving teachings to the people there. Ladakh is not just a place of monasteries and holy caves where great masters practiced and lived. It is also a secret land of Dakinis, or enlightened female beings. According to His Holiness, there are many sacred self-arising images and monuments built by the Dakinis as spiritual supports to genuine practitioners of different ages. For example, along the way to Kortsa, there are at least 4 to 5 highly visible sacred sites built or manifested by the Dakinis. Located halfway from Leh to Himya, along the Indus River, there is a self-arising image of Mahakala, clearly noticeable on a wall of a cliff. As Naropa was the direct emanation of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, His Holiness felt that it was necessary to conduct a 7-day Drupchen, or a great accomplishment ceremony, based on Avalokiteshvara. Because of this, His Holiness arrived in Leh, the capital of Ladakh, from New Delhi on 23rd of June 2004 2 days earlier than expected. During the Drupchen from 24th to the 30th of June 2004, many traditional rituals were held in the newly built Naropa Palace in She, in preparation of the site-liberating Naropa ceremony. This time, His Holiness put over 200 of his nuns in charge of the entire Drupchen. Installing the protectors, known as the Four Great Kings, was the first thing to do at the start of the Drupchen. Many important masters and senior monks of the Drukpa lineage were present right from the beginning. To name a few, His Eminence Chungun Rinpoche Tenzin Chökyi Gyatso, His Eminence Tukse Rinpoche, His Eminence Kamtrul Rinpoche Jinme Pema Nyenjet, His Eminence Takna Rinpoche, and Venerable Se Rinpoche. While the nuns continued the Drupchen in Naropa Palace in She, His Holiness and the pilgrims moved to Hemis Monastery on the 28th of June 2004, viewing the unfurling of the 300-year-old Guru Padma Sambhava Tanka, displayed once every 12 years. This was followed by a series of masked dances related to Guru Padma Sambhava and his emanations. Towards the end of the masked dances, a figurine depicting Lingam, a representation of ego, was cut into pieces, symbolizing the good over the evil. Despite the overcrowded situation, with over 80,000 people all trying to squeeze themselves into the tiny compound of Hemis Monastery, most managed to have their own little tour of the monastery's many shrines, which housed some of the most valuable statues and texts of the lineage and of the entire Tibetan Buddhist history. On the evenings of the 27th, 29th and 30th of June, two of His Holiness's nuns performed a masked dance unique to the Drupchen tradition. The masked dance, or cham, was to remove obstacles and negative forces which might obstruct the ceremony and disturb the practitioners. The entire Drukchen also provided 100,000 Gana Chakra feast offerings and 100,000 lamp offerings for the participants to accumulate great merit. His Holiness prepared the public for the Naropa ceremony by giving a teaching on 37 Bodhisattva practices on the 1st of July at Naropa Palace, and the preparatory initiation was also given as a spiritual support. The next day was the Grand Naropa ceremony, which saw over 130,000 people in the open compound of Naropa Palace. Despite the hot and bright sun, everyone sat through the entire ceremony, which lasted almost 6 hours without a word of complaint. His Holiness said in his journal, "In order to receive the complete blessings of Naropa's ornaments, the first thing is to believe that Naropa existed, and that to truly have devotion towards him and his lineage. Secondly, you must be convinced wholeheartedly that these ornaments are the same as the Buddha's relics, which have the ability to grant sight liberation. With this kind of devotion and understanding, you then see Naropa's ornaments with the altruistic bodhicitta intention. This is how to receive the complete blessings." The local villagers of Ladakh and Kinnaur gave spectacular cultural performances, giving a light moment amidst the series of rituals and ceremonies. His Holiness said, "I always enjoy light moments like this, when people delight in demonstrating their culture and sharing their love of this with others." Later that evening, at the request of the local She community, His Holiness and his entourage of Rinpoches, monks and nuns went to a holy pond just beside She Palace to make offerings to the Nagas living there. On the same evening, His Holiness had dinner with one of his best friends, His Holiness Drikung Chetsang Rinpoche of the Drikung lineage, after a long and tiring day of public events. The next morning, while the crowds queued orderly to enter the Naropa Palace to view the mandala of Avalokiteshvara and the crown of Naropa, a small accident caused a few minor injuries. A fire brigade was brought in by the local government to break up the crowds. So the public viewing of the mandala and the crown had to be stopped and continued the next 2 days.
Enfin, 100 places pour enfants. Le premier bâtiment sera fini en fait, c'est ça? Oui, oui, non, tout à fait.
On the 4th of July 2004, after displaying the 6 ornaments of Naropa, His Holiness and the Drukpa Trust of United Kingdom invited all the foreign pilgrims of Lama Nawang to visit the Drukpadma Karpo Institute, an educational project His Holiness holds very close to his heart.
We are hoping, not only hoping, but we are projecting that entire building will be built within, 7 to 8 years. And then finally, of course, hopefully it will be a university, so then it will serve the entire world through the skill of entire education and knowledges, not only the knowledges of Ladakh in itself, but others also. Thank you.
About 200 school children presented some very inspiring performances. Everyone felt that the hope of preserving and upholding the nearly extinct Himalayan culture of Ladakh lay with these children. His Holiness is confident that with the generous help of the kind benefactors from the West, the school will gradually develop into a practical and beneficial learning institute, not only for the local people, but also for many foreigners. On the 5th of July, after His Holiness collected the 6 ornaments of Naropa from Naropa Palace in She, he took these ornaments to Chemdre Monastery. The local villagers performed extensive welcome dances, as it was the very first time the ornaments had entered their village. Chemdre Monastery was offered to Tatsang Repa, the spiritual master of King Sengye Namgyal, when the latter passed away in 1642. Tatsang Repa turned it into a monastery, constructed statues, frescoes and the courtyard where masked dances are performed. As the main spiritual guide of Ladakh, His Holiness had to visit many local villages to fulfill his responsibility. During this pilgrimage, just as with his other visits, His Holiness took time off, whenever possible, to see his local devotees and give brief teachings according to their needs. Most of the villagers were suffering from problems of drought. His Holiness had to work hard to fulfill their request for rain. On the way to Khortsa on the 7th of July 2004, with an entourage of monks and over 350 foreign pilgrims, His Holiness again took the opportunity to visit the local villages of Tire, Kere, Kesa, Skidmang and Chumatang and gave simple teachings to the villagers there.